I think I have to say this with Fire Emblem Engage, and maybe some of you guys are tired of me talking about it if you've been watching my previous videos, but now that I'm 40 plus hours into Fire Emblem Engage, I'm well past chapter 10 as well, and trust me, there won't be any spoilers here, so you won't have to worry about it. I think the critics definitely got it wrong with this game, especially when I read a lot of the reviews and some of the criticisms. Now, once again, it is opinion, and this is all opinion based, but I think that there was some exaggeration when it comes to the story and when it comes to the characters and what some people were saying about this game, as if it was the most generic characters and stories ever in a video game. And I've seen way worse from games that were rated better than Fire Emblem Engage. And I touched on this just a little bit ago with Mario plus Rabbids Sparks of Hope, that game being multiple points rated higher. And once again, you can't do a one-to-one comparison, but to sit here and act in any type of way or universe that Fire Emblem Engage is a lower rated strategy RPG or isn't as good in terms of score as Mario plus Rabbids Sparks of Hope is a disgrace to the strategy RPG genre, as Fire Emblem Engage, when it comes to content, when it comes to characters, when it comes to features, when it comes to graphics, when it comes to pretty much everything, in my opinion, absolutely wipes the floor with Mario plus Rabbids, and the reviewers make it seem as if Fire Emblem is just this generic type of game at times. And oh my gosh, Mario plus Rabbids is this game that's brimming with great story and characters, as if it does all this. And the more that I play through Fire Emblem Engage, the more that I realize that a lot of the critics probably just put it on easy, put it on normal, put it on casual, just blitzed right through the game in 20 hours or 30 hours or so, didn't do the extra content, didn't look at the extra different type of things, didn't talk about the structure in terms of the difference between what old Fire Emblem is and new Fire Emblem, didn't talk about that in a meaningful way. They just kind of treated it as just a normal Fire Emblem game and didn't discuss all of those things. And I think that's where they got it wrong. And that's why you kind of saw a lot of the 7 or 8 type of scores. Now, once again, everybody is entitled to their opinion, and I think that that's fine. Like, if you feel that way about the game, that's completely cool. But I almost liken this to a game that came out a few years ago on the PlayStation 4, and that's Ghost of Tsushima, where a lot of people kind of played it and just saw it as Assassin's Creed, but maybe done a bit better. And I'll be honest, I kind of saw it, but what I looked at when it comes to other people talking about the game and other people discussing it, I was like, wait a minute, this game is way better than that. I think that the scores don't necessarily line up with the quality of the game, and I think that's the same thing here with Fire Emblem Engage. This is more like a 9+ out of 10. It's definitely not a lower 80s game, and it absolutely shouldn't be rated underneath Mario plus Rabbids as a strategy RPG, because the story is better, there's more characters, there's more depth, there's more everything. And I think that a lot of reviewers don't necessarily like strategy RPGs, but they're put on the game, so therefore they just have to give a review. And this type of game, with the content that it has and the style that it is, it being far more complex than a game like Mario plus Rabbids, it was easy for them to slap a 8.5 or to slap a 9 on there and say, all right, here you go, it's easy enough, the story isn't really too meddling, I don't have to listen to these characters or even do more work, and I can just play through this game straight up, beat the game in 15-20 hours, normal difficulty, bam, done with the review, there you go, Mario's in the game, have fun. But I think that with Fire Emblem Engage, it goes a bit deeper, especially if you're a Fire Emblem fan, and I think that a lot of these people probably aren't Fire Emblem fans. They're not really fans of the series, and they don't really understand a lot of the mechanics and depth and the different type of things that this game does, story-wise and gameplay-wise, that really takes it up a notch and should be much better than what it was reviewed out there. Because once again, I was trying to be completely objective at first, and I was saying, yeah, I had some people come over and say, OJ, yeah, I don't know about the story, man, and all that. I'm like, okay, I get it. I was playing the game at the beginning, I'm like, okay, I can understand a little bit. There's some cheesy or campy type of dialogue, but as you go in and other stuff happens, there's some great twists and turns. And of course, I will not spoil or ruin any of those here, but I want to talk just a bit about some of that. So I think that the characters in the story being criticized as much is like weird, because a character like Fogado, for example, from the Kingdom of Solm, I mean, the happy-go-lucky nature, the dialogue back and forth with his mom and also with his sister, kind of what goes on there was incredible. I love the sass that he has. Almost reminds me of Claude from Fire Emblem Three Houses, which there's some interesting dialogue between those two when you do the support stuff. And also even like Alchrist, his timid nature and kind of how goofy he is, especially when you first meet up with him, and then you kind of see the dynamic. It doesn't just go right there. You see the dynamic between him and his brother Diamante and what happens with their father and their kingdom of Brodia as well. I think that's a very well-made storyline, and I think that it fits in terms of what Fire Emblem is about in previous games that we've had with the characters in the past, or even like the silly Yunaka, but how deadly she is as a thief and how she's mysterious and how she kind of lies, and she has to really realize that she has allies that are on her team that will accept her for her faults and will not judge her completely on her past. Or even characters like Etienne and her thirst for strength training, having weighted teacups, and her gruff nature to have muscles and be strong. I mean, there's all sorts, in my opinion, of fantastic characters with great dialogue. If you actually explore a bit more, you do the supports, you do the resting and how they come into your room and talk to you in the morning. I think that there is a lot to be said with the characters. Not saying that it's the best cast of characters ever, or that it's way better than Three Houses in that sense, but I think that there was a little bit of an exaggeration with saying that the story's terrible and the characters are all terrible and they're all boring, which there were many reviews that labeled it as that and gave it a bad score because of that, which did lower the reviews quite a bit. So I think that where a lot of this changes was chapter 10. Chapter 10 is, I think, where things just get super crazy, and the story is classic Fire Emblem, but very well done with the writing and with the structure of what's going on. I think that the Divine and Emblem paralogs is such an incredible addition to the game that gives you that extra backstory on the previous characters from Fire Emblem. And once again, this is all story parts that all ties into it. But if you don't know Fire Emblem, you don't know Lynn and her story, and you don't know some of these characters, Lucina and all of that, and how you go to these really iconic areas and play. If you don't know about all this, you're really not going to care too much, and maybe it affects what you think about the story or how things are laid out. Now, I think that one thing that absolutely isn't being said here is that the structure of this game is by far the best melding of classic Fire Emblem and new Fire Emblem, if not the best in the series. Now, I talked about how this game is an anniversary game and how we might not see another one like it going forward, but the structure of this game and what they've done is incredible. You have the Somniel, your base camp or home base in the old school games, or even the monastery in the new games, right? You have all of that. You also have the chapters, so it's not going by a calendar or just kind of going from one point to another. You have your chapters that you can engage in on your own. You have the world map, which has not been in every single Fire Emblem game. Awakening had it, some games did have it, but they have the world map. But the world map is done way better than any other Fire Emblem game, being able to easily quick travel to anywhere that you want in terms of different battles or skirmishes that you need to get to, the latest chapter, if you need to go back to the Somniel, if you need to buy a weapon, you can do it right there. If you need to check on anything with your characters, you can have it all right there on the chapter select, the world map menu. It's fantastic. The quick travel's great as well, and being able to infinitely grind battles for rewards as well just adds to that gameplay layer and depth that many other Fire Emblem games are missing, and is a big part of what makes this game really good. You can't say that it's not, because that's what Fire Emblem is about, and it's the fantastically fine-tuned structure and gameplay of the strategy RPG. I think that some of the stuff too, I just didn't see enough of these reviews talking about it as well, with the extra content that's in the game. People always complain about content in Mario games or Mario sports games and all this other stuff. Fire Emblem is brimmed, literally packed full of content that you can play offline, you can play online with your friends, you can download the maps and play. There is all sorts of stuff here that just really wasn't talked about in the reviews, and I don't think even factored in to the score when you talk about something like this. So the replay value is off the charts here, and a lot of it was just skipped over in the reviews, and especially like some of the customization stuff that you can do with your own card and all of that. It's just really good stuff here, and just makes a game that's just more well-rounded than a lot of the previous Fire Emblem games, even the new age Fire Emblem games. But I think that structure and having that has just been a hot debate for so many years between how Fire Emblem should be. Should you have all of the social aspects and things like that? Should you have the places where you can go around, the romancing options, compared to what they've done in the past, which is more straight up gameplay? And I think that this Fire Emblem game finally gets the perfect meld between the two. And it's not ruined because there are people that are buying this game. It's #1 on the eShop. It's been doing well on Amazon. The game is selling great. We saw the Japanese sales for the game, like it started out higher than Fire Emblem Three Houses, and it absolutely has a higher digital ratio with more people owning a Switch now at this point than Fire Emblem Three Houses, and that's the best selling Fire Emblem game of all time. But I don't think everything was accounted for here. I think a lot of people just want to get the review up as I read through these. But if you go back and look at them, a lot of the stuff that I'm talking about here was not expanded upon. A lot of the stuff was not discussed when it comes to exactly how much better the UI, the interface, the combat, the emblem rings, the strategy with that is actually implemented into the gameplay to make a better and more fun experience for newcomers, in addition to Fire Emblem veterans as well. It really creates that. And if you want to talk about difficulty, or if you want to talk about replay value with that, being able to have the custom tower trials and have the difficulty laid on top from there and other things that you can do is just something that wasn't talked about. So I think that these reviewers got it wrong. The fact that it's an 81, 82 on Metacritic, to me, it's just not that. It's just much better than its score. And I feel that there's a lot of games that you can say have that. You know, there's a lot of games that you can pick out there and say, all right, yeah, maybe the Metacritic score isn't quite as high as it should be. I talked about Ghost of Tsushima before, but it's just my opinion on that. I think that they got it wrong there. I think that it's ridiculous that a game, and I hate to keep bringing it up, but Mario plus Rabbids is higher rated than Fire Emblem Engage, because Fire Emblem Engage is like 10 times more addictive than Mario plus Rabbids will ever be. People are responding to it that way. I think that fans have been playing the game and have been enjoying it. I'm not going to sit here and say that everybody will agree with what I'm saying here with the story and some of the characters. I know that there's absolutely Fire Emblem fans who don't feel the same way, and that's okay. I'm simply just talking about it from my own perspective. But I do think this, that the future of Fire Emblem, especially if they decide to stick to this formula when it comes to the structure, not everything with the emblem rings and with the non-marriage and all that type of stuff. I'm not talking about that. I'm simply talking about how they do the chapters, how they do the grinding in the game, how they do the different stuff with Somniel, the quick travel, the world map, the quality of life features built into that. All of that structure is what makes Fire Emblem Engage, maybe, when it's all said and done, it might be my favorite Fire Emblem game. It honestly could be, just because of how well done it is, and the gameplay has never been better. So if you're looking at it from my own perspective, I'm looking at like, hey, look, I don't think that the story is anywhere near as bad as people are laying it out. I think it's a solid story, maybe not the best, but it's solid. But the gameplay is absolutely, to me, has been the best that it's ever been, in my own personal opinion. So that's where I'm coming from with this. I'm not trying to sit there and say that it's a perfect game and that it does everything better than every Fire Emblem. But what I am saying is that it's a lot better than what some people were trying to tell me and commenting. And I feel that it's a lot better story-wise and gameplay-wise than what I read in multiple different reviews, especially for my review roundup. There were so many times I think that a lot of non-Fire Emblem fans got their hands on this game and played it, and really just kind of gave an assessment from the first few chapters of the game. But as I'm playing through, I'm sitting here and saying, hey, for an anniversary game, which these games with stories are very hard to actually make something coherent and good. I mean, stuff like Project Cross Zone or Tokyo Mirage Sessions, it never really turns out the way that you think it will story-wise. But I think out of an anniversary game or like one of these crossover games for an RPG, this is easily one of the best ones, best stories, best ones that I've played by far. And absolutely, once again, rising up the list for my favorite Fire Emblem game of all time. It's definitely going to be up there because some of the stuff that they do in this game and as I play through and with the content and replayability, it's just absolutely nuts. There's never been anything like this in Fire Emblem history, even with Fire Emblem Fates and some of the games that I've had online. This does it way better in terms of single player content and replayability and also online. I think it's better done in this game than any other Fire Emblem game, and man, that was not said in a lot of the reviews. That's my opinion on it. What do you guys think about it? Make sure you check out my previous videos on Fire Emblem Engage if you haven't seen them. I discussed the overall review roundup at first. I discussed quite a number of controversies with it, so if you want to check out any of those videos, link in the description below. Thank you guys for watching. We'll see you for the next one. Peace.